Hi, my name is Jessica Buddy, and I have been married to my husband Joe we just celebrated 15 years. We have two daughters. Addison is 12 and Briley is 10. And we moved to Tennessee in January. So today I just kind of wanted to share with you guys a little bit about our journey with the Lord and what He's been speaking to us and doing through us, and I hope that it can somehow in some way impact or encourage you in your journey. It was in probably August of 2018, so that'd be 2017. We were just really praying and seeking the Lord. We really felt like we lived in Florida. We lived in Orlando, and my husband was self-employed. My girls went to a private school. We'd been going to our church for probably about 7 years, and really just felt like the Lord was closing all of those doors. We just felt like the season was done with all of those different things. We could name all kinds of reasons and excuses, but the reality is what I have found is that when our season ends somewhere, the grace lifts. And you start picking apart things that never really even bothered you before. And so that season we knew, like our house, everything about it, we knew that the season was done. We just didn't know what that meant. So as a family, we said, let's seek the Lord. And so we decided as a family to do a 21-day fast. And we did the Daniel fast, and it was really awesome because the girls were completely on board and they did it with us. And it was really neat because as we sought the Lord, they were able to hear from Him as well. And so it wasn't just me and my husband on this journey. The kids got to be involved and invested in it. And so, and they knew that, if we moved, this would affect them too. So to us, that was a really, really big thing. We wanted to make sure that we were all in agreement and unity, because again, that's when you know it's God. So as we sought the Lord, we just started praying and just weren't really getting any specific clarity. And I remember one Saturday night we were at church and the Lord was like, "This will be your last service here." And I was so upset. I was a wreck. I was crying. I was like, "Lord, that's not you. You're not going to take something away and not tell me what's next." And He just kept saying to me, look more, keep looking. And so at this point during our fast, I know this sounds super crazy, but being in Orlando, we knew we were going to probably move north, didn't have any idea what any of that would look like. So we decided to, Google is amazing. And I just started Googling churches. We kind of really felt led to Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and I think it was, I want to say North Carolina, maybe South Carolina, don't even remember. And so I just started Googling churches, and I started reading all kinds of mission statements, vision statements, reading about the pastors, watching messages, watching worship. Like whatever I could get my hands on, I would just research everything. And as I was doing this, I came across Redemption to the Nations, and I was immediately blown away. And I was like, what is this? And I just started, just through the computer screen, there was so much spirit that I would just be crying the whole time. And I was just like, wow, that's awesome. But I was like, but Lord, if you could, do this, right? So if you could put it in my pretty box, that would be really great. If you could shorten the services a little bit, and so I just had all of that's good, but I'm going to compare everything to that. Like that's the new standard, right? So I just found myself just searching and searching and searching and saying, but this is my comfort zone. And our church in Florida, it was not spirit-filled. There was not really, we believe in the healing, but you don't really see it happen much. And it was the way I would explain it is we felt in our spirits, there has got to be so much more. And that was the only thing that we could really say was the turning point for us. Like there's I know there's more. There's got to be more for me, more for my husband, more for our kids. We know there's more, and we're not there. Of course, knowing we never arrived there, right? So we're on the other side of heaven, but just knowing that there had to be so much more. And so I started comparing everything to RTTN, and I realized one day the Lord told me to watch another message. And it was Pastor Devin actually sharing about open doors and closed doors. And I was like, okay, God. So I looked at my husband and I said, I think we need to go visit the church. Like now, like this weekend. This was, I think, Thursday. And he said, we're on our fast, right? And I was like, yeah, that's right. But no, you're right. With the kids and traveling and, that would just get really complicated. So let's not. So then the next day I watched another message. And I said, no, we are going. I don't care if we're on the fast, we're going. And so we went. And the whole trip up here was horrible. When I say horrible, I mean horrible. I was car sick the whole time. I'm not used to mountains. And so I was literally nauseous driving down all these roads. We seemed to go through all of the older part of downtown. And I'm from Florida, so it's a lot newer there. Everything was a little bit more older, run down, tougher areas. And I was really struggling. Like, all right, Lord, what? Your will, not mine, right? And we got to the hotel that night, and remember, we know nothing about the area. Mind you, we know no one. We know not one person here. We've never met anybody here. We just feel like the Lord's telling us to come here. And so we decided, we went to this hotel, just not really thinking anything of it. And the whole night I was like, I feel like I am getting bit by something. And my husband's like, no, it's okay. And so I'm praying in the spirit the whole time, really thinking I'm having a spiritual attack. And so I'm just like, no, enemy, you don't have any power or control or authority. And so I'm just, but that night before we went to bed, I said to my husband, I think we missed it. Like, I just don't think that this is it. I mean, if it's God, he'd have to really prove himself in a really big way. Because after today, like, it just doesn't even make sense. We can't move our whole family off of a hunch. And so went to bed that night. And in fact, I was getting bit by bed bugs all night long. Did you know that actually only about 1 out of 5 people are affected by bed bugs? And that happened to be me and my family. So I'm the only one that was bit, which, praise God, I'm the only one that was affected, but I'm thinking it's a spiritual attack, so I'm praying in the spirit all night. And the only way I could explain it is either the Lord revealed to me in my sleep everything that had led up to this point, or he revealed to me everything that was to come. I don't remember. All I know is I woke up and I looked at my husband and I said, this makes no sense, but I feel like we are exactly where we're supposed to be. And he said, I agree. And we had walked through a season of just not being in unity, being in a lot of division over simple things, lots of business decisions. We've owned our own business for many, many years, worked together for many, many years, and there's a whole nother testimony and story behind all of that. But if I go into that today, I won't even be able to share the whole story about how we got here. But for us to be completely in agreement and alignment like that can only make sense if it's God. And I just said, but it has to be, like, God has to show up in humongous ways today. And so he said, I 100% agree. So we get done at the hotel. Again, I don't know I got bit by bed bugs because you don't actually know that until about 3 to 4 days later. So we go to church, we get everybody in the car, and we're walking through the parking lot, and I remember thinking, this is a really big life decision right here, based off of, like, just a visit. Like, it's not just a visit. So at this point we walk in, and now at this time, Redemption to the Nations had been doing worship out of the gym. And so I was fully expected to go to the gym. I was just excited to be in the presence of the Lord in a magnified way. And so we get there, and it's the first day in the brand new sanctuary. And I looked at my husband, and he said, "Don't over spiritualize it." And I said, "I'm going to." I turn around to check my youngest daughter into kid care. And one of the things I have been praying for those of you women out there, the Lord has revealed so much to me, so maybe I'll touch on that for like just a smidgen of a second. The Lord has really revealed to me how important it is, of course, to be a submissive wife, and I feel like I've been working on a lot of that for many years, in the sense of respecting him, honoring him, loving him. If he doesn't agree with me, being okay with that, and going to the Lord and allowing the Lord to comfort me and protect me in those things. But where I had fallen short for many years is, here's a visual. If your husband were off in Afghanistan at war, what would you be doing? You'd be on your knees praying for him to make it home safely every single day, if not many times a day. And yet our husbands are in spiritual warfare every single day, and we hardly even think to pray for them. And this was actually all that 21 days, and prior to that, the Lord had very much revealed to me that I needed to be on my knees praying for my husband, because if he wasn't knowing how to fight for himself, who was? And so we need to recognize the power of being able to fight on their behalf spiritually, because we need to tell the enemy that he doesn't have power or victory. Because sometimes, as we need our spouses to do the same for us, sometimes we don't even realize we're under attack. And so what happens is we just do life, and we just think that we're just having a bad day, when really we're under attack, and we need somebody to go to war for us, because we don't have the strength or energy on our own. And so that was something that I had been doing, and one of the things I had been specifically, strategically praying for my husband was a men of God, not one, but men of God, to rise up around him, who would love him, encourage him, but they would not be afraid to challenge him. Because he has been a man that many people have loved. Everybody's always loved him, but very few, if any, if I dare to be honest and bold enough to say, have ever really challenged him. And so that was the cry of my heart, because I don't want to, none of us want to be the only person in our spouse's life that challenge them. You know, we just want them to be the best that they can be. And we unfortunately all get to see, he gets to see my ugly, I get to see his ugly. And if you don't have ugly, then I need you in my life so you can teach me how to not have it. So anyways, I turn around to drop my daughter off in kid care, whatever it's called, you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I turn around, and this man is talking to my husband. And I'm just like, okay, God, all right, I hear you. This man's super nice, and you guys have anywhere to sit? You guys want to sit with us? We've been at our old church for, I believe, 8 years, and not one person had ever asked us to sit with them. This is our first time in a completely new state, and we've been in the state before, but first time in here at the church, don't know anybody, and he's like, come sit with us. Him and his family, his wife, just super friendly. By the time they left, they invited us to stay at their house the next time we were in town. Who does that? I mean, like, I'm just looking at the Lord, and my husband's talking to him during worship, and I'm just like, all right, God. I mean, like, this is what I had been fighting for. This is what I had been on my knees praying for. Most people could see it as taking it over spiritual. Most people could see it as taking it lightly. I saw it as answered prayer in a short amount of time, because I was willing to fight. And it doesn't even mean that was the man to be that person in his life, but it was God showing me, I've got this. All you need to do is come to me and trust that I will take care of the details. And it was really just affirmation to my heart and my soul. We got into our seats, and they were asking, anybody new, first-time guests, and greet our family guys. This big deal. Sometimes he makes a big deal, sometimes he doesn't. Well, that particular Sunday, he had made a big deal about first-time guests. Of course, not knowing anything about us, because they didn't even know. We didn't tell anybody we were coming. And so this lady comes up to me, And she gives everybody a hug, and she gets to me and she says, "Oh, girl, you gonna love it. I'm gonna be seeing you again." And I just looked at her and I thought, Lord, like, how would she know that? She doesn't even know we're from out of state visiting. She has no idea, and that happens. And I just looked at the Lord, and then worship happened. And I mean, if you've ever experienced our worship, you understand what I'm talking about. Like, after the first song, I looked at my husband and I said, "I think we need to go home and start packing." And he looked at me and he smiled. And I had left out a little detail, but it was a big detail. We had a 17-year-old daughter of a friend of mine staying with us for a semester. And she was on this entire journey with us, which was amazing and beautiful and totally got appointed. And she looked at me at the second song and said, "This is y'all's church. You can't move. This is it." And I just, it was crazy. I think the second song they sang was, "Let the enemy know we're coming." I mean, couldn't be more on point. When we got done with worship, of course, the message, everything about it just hit my heart on point. We were all completely, like, blown away. We get out to the, I don't know what you call it, the greeting area, the reception lobby. Mm-hmm. Lobby, that makes sense. Good thing somebody knows what they're talking about. So the lobby, and we kind of like, hey, kind of weird, but we don't live here, and we just came to check you guys' church out. Could you tell us a little bit about the area? And, you know, if we were looking for homes, what area would we look in? Because we know literally nothing. And at the same time, we end up meeting a realtor, and she comes over and introduces herself to us, and we're talking, and she tells us what area to check out. I mean, just God, you know? And then there's somebody who overhears us. "Hey, I was over here. I overheard you guys. Did you say you were from Florida? Because I'm from Florida. We lived there for 16 years, and we just moved up here about 2 years ago. If you guys need anything, let us know." I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And we went and drove around different areas after that, and we were like, oh. And what I really felt like the Lord just kept saying to me, it's gonna make me emotional. He didn't reveal all of those things before we came to church. Now, again, I believe church is about the Lord showing up and having a personal encounter with Him, right? It's not the building. It's not even. It is the people, but it's the unity of people and the hunger for more of the Holy Spirit that really makes it what it is. And I really felt like the Lord was saying that He didn't reveal all those things to me before, and He allowed me to be blind to them before because He wanted to know, is He enough? And that's really hard in our world because our world teaches us so much other stuff is important. It teaches us a house is important, safety is important. It teaches us money is important, retirement is important, family is important. And I just really felt like the Lord just kept saying, is my spirit alone enough for you? And that's when I realized that's the more that we've been missing, that we need, that the void will always be there if we don't have more of Him. And so we left that day and we started planning what it would look like to move. Like I said, we had owned our own business. We've owned our own business as long as we've been together, which is 15 years, 16 years. We've moved several times. It's looked a little different each season, but we decided we would sell our house in Florida and take the girls out of private school. And because of the season, we don't know the areas, we don't know the schools, we don't know anything. So we will homeschool the girls, which is the grace of the Lord alone. I am the one who has said I would never homeschool my children. And I have learned that you never say never, because that is when the Lord challenged you to do it. So, never say never. Don't do it. I just really felt like the Lord was saying this is a season where they will need to feel safe, they will need to feel comfortable, they will need to feel protected, to throw them into an unknown environment on top of everything else going on. I really felt like it was supposed to be a very safe place for them in the move of it all. But that also meant a totally different transition for me as well. I had helped my husband with the business, took the kids to school, but I had a lot of my own time that I did things with, and that completely shifted. We really felt like my husband was going to just stop working there and finish up all of his jobs, and then when he came here, that the Lord would reveal what that needed to look like for job-wise, or career, or whatever it looks like. And so we put our house on the market. Probably it took us about 2 weeks to get it prepped and ready, and the realtor, I'm trying to decide how much to share here, but the realtor told us to list it for $50,000 more than we would have even listed it for. Just, we thought no way would that even make sense. And within, I want to say 3 days, we had a higher than asking price offer. And it's like, okay, God, I mean, I thought this realtor was crazy when he told us to list it for that. And we were like, okay, God, I mean, if you want to do that, And then we thought, well, no, it'll never appraise, but that's okay. We have peace with whatever, because we really were at a place with whatever it looks like, God. Like, it's yours anyways. So at the end of the day, you do what you need to do. You know what's to come. You know what lies ahead. And so it did appraise, and it blew our minds. And what's crazy is that right there is actually what really, really broke my husband, because he realized that God didn't actually need him to do it. And I think that's where we get confused. We think that we need to jump in and do everything for God, when the reality is sometimes God actually needs us to get out of his way so that he can just simply work through us. And that's when it really broke my husband, because I mean, you won't meet a man who can work harder, or who would work harder. I mean, 6 days a week, 80-hour weeks, that's minimal for him. And so he just looked and just said, I can't even believe that God would do this. And that was, I think, a big turning point. That was actually, I'm gonna rat him out a little bit, but that was the first time I had seen him cry in a really long time. And it just broke him, because he realized that he doesn't have to do it, but that God can do it. And so we packed everything up, and we didn't know if we would be buying, if we would be renting. I don't know, like when you buy, did you know that like banks like want to know what kind of job you're gonna have? Who would have thought? In order to get financed, they want you to know you got an income. I don't get it, but so that didn't work out. But we decided to move anyways, and whatever it looked like. And we had actually moved forward with buying because we had thought that it would work out. And we found out, I believe it was the day before New Year's Eve, we found out that it wasn't going to work out. Now, we had sold our house December 18th. And so we were homeless. And just standing in faith, we packed everything up, we put it in storage units, and we're just like, all right, God, you're going to orchestrate the details. So we stayed with Mom for Christmas, because I knew my mom was going to have a really hard time if we were not there for Christmas. So all my family is in Florida, by the way. And so we stayed there for that week. We hung out with Mom and Dad, and then we were like, all right, we're going to head out. So the day after Christmas, we headed out to Joe's brother in North Carolina, and we stayed there for a few days, and we're really starting to get a little bit restless. That's when we figured out that the sale wasn't going to happen, and we decided, okay, we're gonna I think we're gonna go to Chattanooga. Like, we don't have anywhere to go, but I think we're going to do that. And his brother was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because it's New Year's Eve and realtors aren't going to be able to show you anything because it doesn't, like, just stay. And I was like, I'm going to pray about it. And he looked at me like I had like 3 heads, you know. I went up to the room and I just sought the Lord. I just put on praise and worship and I just sat before him and I just said, God, what would you have us do? And really strongly felt like I did not want to miss any more time away from where he's calling us to be, no matter what that looked like. So we booked a hotel and we headed out and we came to Chattanooga, different hotel. And although I got all kinds of hotel stories, that's another day, another time. So we stayed at the hotel, and that was New Year's Eve, I believe. I might be a day or 2 off, but I believe it was right around there, because we wanted to be back for New Year's Eve service. And so we did. We came for New Year's Eve, and we were homeless for about a week. I say homeless, but I mean, the Lord really, really, really took care of us, which was beautiful, but we didn't know. We had no idea what it would look like and how long it would look. And so we ended up finding a house to rent, and we moved in, I think it was like less than a week after we had decided to come back here. And so let's fast forward a little bit through some of the year, because we're now in December. And I can't even tell you the things that the Lord has done in my husband, and how he has just gotten a hold of his heart in ways that I don't know that he's ever let the Lord get a hold of his heart in that way. He has experienced so much breakthrough and freedom. I mean, freedom would really be the main word, of just not being bound or identified by work or by culture or by retirement or anything else, because I mean, you kind of have to leave that behind when you walk away from everything. And so it's been so amazing, just the unity. We've been home all together all the time, which I thought we might want to go crazy, but we have just bonded like we've never have before. And to no credit be us. Like, that's when you know you're in alignment with the Lord, is when there is peace in a house, when you're home all the time together. But not all the time, because we are not perfect, okay? Let's get that straight. But it's been such a transformation. My husband, we really thought he was going to go right back to work immediately. He searched for jobs for the first 3 months like crazy, and just felt like the Lord was not allowing him to go back to work. Which I know seems crazy, but for him is nothing shy of a miracle. And we really feel like the Lord was telling us that the next step was going to be that he was going to orchestrate our own home, and we wouldn't be renting. And he was going to orchestrate all of those details, and that Joe would be needed to fix up our own home. And so a month and a half ago, we actually sold one of our rental properties in Florida. This is crazy, and it is only God, but we sold it for 4 times what we paid for it. That's a whole nother story. But the testimony in it is that when you're walking in alignment with the Lord and his will, he will orchestrate those details in ways that seem impossible. I mean, again, when our realtor told us what to list it for, I thought, you're crazy. This is what I paid for it. It doesn't even make sense. And God says, I don't need things to make sense. I just need you to be willing. And we did, and it has blown our mind, and we were able to, when the bank told us no, the Lord said yes. And so the Lord has orchestrated all of the details for us to be able to live in our own home and not have to worry about the things that life can steal from us, that culture can steal from us. And now he can continue to walk in the freedom of what God has for him. We have no idea what is next. We have no idea what God's up to. And the Lord had to really rock a lot of me at the beginning, because I thought, well, we're going to come here and we're going to be like difference makers. And the Lord just continued to reveal to me, servant. I need you to be a servant. I need you to be a servant in your home. Because it's actually really easy in some ways for some of us to go outside of our home and serve. For me it was. But in my home to serve was another story. I mean, we'll meet the needs and I'll take care of you and I'll love on you, but like to serve you, to be with you all the time, the Lord has just rocked my vision of success or purpose, and just really said, this season has really been a lot about our family and teaching my girls, equipping my girls. What the Lord has done in the girls, I can't even tell you. My children are 10 and 12, and they are prophesying. They are getting dreams and visions. And that is what the Lord has done in my husband and in my children's life has been worth every single sacrifice made. And I want to be super honest with you. Just because I know it's the Lord's will does not mean that it was easy. It was not easy. I cried the other night because my sister was going through something and I knew that I couldn't be there to hug her. But I also know the promise that the Lord made me is what the Lord needs to do in her life needed to be absent of me being there. And so I know that it's still a fulfillment of what he's already promised me. And so I can still look at it, and even though I get upset, I can still look at it and see, but God's still good. God's still doing what he promised. And it's okay that I'm not there to save her because he's always there. And so it's just, sometimes it's not easy, but it doesn't mean it's not his will. And it means that we constantly have to surrender it and get at his feet for the peace that we need and the assurance of his goodness, no matter what it looks like. And so all to say that we, full circle here, we will be moving into our new house by New Year's Eve of this year. And so in 1 year, what God has done has blown our minds in so many ways that we couldn't even imagine. And again, we have no idea what's to lie ahead, but all we know is that he's brought us this far. We just don't want anything less. This is my favorite saying right now. I don't want it if it's not his will. We have not come this far to get 99.9% of his will. We want it all. And so, Lord, whatever that looks like, whatever that sounds like, but when you say that, make sure you're actually willing to live it, because I want to tell you it's a lot easier to say than it is to do. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that means that you live more humbly. Sometimes that means that you make more sacrifices. Sometimes that means that you're more selfless. Sometimes that means that you're a servant and not a leader. And sometimes it looks so different, but oftentimes it's not the way we would envision it looking, because the world tells us that success looks this way. But when we look at Jesus and his disciples, they were willing to give it all just for the kingdom. And so that's what my hope is to continue to strive in, is for his kingdom. What does that look like, God? So I hope my story inspires you a little bit, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.